there, it's Tracy Tully and you're listening to Tracy Tully Talks at bbsradio.com, the place to be right now, streaming live with another 60 minutes of thought-provoking topics, sharing with you conversations that are relevant today, tomorrow and in the future. Join me each week on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Australian time, AEST, 5 p.m. Wednesday PT. Hello, Los Angeles. If you missed the live show, jump onto your favourite podcasting platform and you'll find me on Tracy Tully Talks. We do have some adult language, so if you have some little ones around, pop on your earphones. Hello and welcome to Tracy Tully Talks, and it's Tracy here, and we are broadcasting live from a little town called Cunnamulla in the great southwest of Queensland in Australia. So this is what we call the outback. Whilst you can't see it, we're enjoying the freedom of the country out here and the silence and the beautiful skies, stars and moon. With me today in the studio, I have Margaret Gilbert, and we welcome Margaret joining us today. Oops.
Thank you, Tracy. Welcome.
Okay, so Margaret, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please? Who's Margaret Gilbert?
Who is Margaret Gilbert? I grew up in the South Burnett, born and bred, lived on acreage, quite a big farm with cattle, and in those days, peanuts, and in the later years, Debosia plantations. So for extensive time, I grew up in the bush. Then I moved to the Big Smoke, capital city of Queensland, which is Brisbane, to do my nursing. In between that, I went to boarding school and had made a decision that I wanted to be a nurse.
So I met Margaret a couple of months ago. Margaret is the president of the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland, and I invited Margaret to talk today and tell us a little bit about herself. So what actually led you to nursing, Margaret?
Well, initially, I actually wanted to be a vet, Tracy.
Oh, did you?
My mother, being a teacher, told me that I actually had to have a career for all of my life. And she said, could you imagine yourself climbing over stockyards at 40? So I was quite puzzled. I thought I could. And today I think I could have done that. She said, you need a career for life? Be a doctor. I thought, no, I don't want to be a doctor. An uncle of ours said to me, why don't you become a nurse? He said, you can do clinical work, you can branch into education or management. You'll have a job for life and you can travel the world with that. So I thought, oh, he's pretty knowledgeable. That's what I'll do. And that was how I decided to follow my path into nursing.
I see. So at what point were you led to seek a leadership role in nursing in Queensland?
I was fortunate enough to be socialised at the Royal Brisbane Hospital by brilliant, in those days we called them charge nurses, and provided us mentorship in management and leadership. And I thought I admired their skills. I want to be like them sometime in my career. Fortunately, I had the opportunity early in my career to become a nurse, unit manager. And I was, in fact, at that time, the youngest nurse to become a nurse manager. I was just at 26 years of age. It provided such a wide scope of nursing and the ability to implement change within the workplace. So I was so fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
So we're recording live right now for those listeners, and we are in a library in Cunnamulla. And Cunnamulla is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometres away, hundreds and hundreds of kilometres away from our major city, which is called Brisbane in Queensland. So there is a lot of background noise. And when you're travelling and on the road and you're in the outback countries, this is what you have to do. You need to go to a library to be able to broadcast. So this is what we are in now, and this is part of what you're going to pick up today while we speak. So you were a nursing director, Margaret. Tell me, what were the highlights of your career?
Again, as a nursing director, I worked in a private hospital. Again, amazing leadership, and the leader at that particular time, Helen Bamp, she had great foresight into where she saw nursing going into the 21st century. In those days, this is going back to last century, in fact, for some viewers, I introduced the nursing process into our organisation and actually educated and mentored staff, enrolled nurses and registered nurses. And it was amazing to see how those people blossomed and went on to greater things. So that was one highlight. I then I had done some tertiary studies, and Dorothy Oram, some of you may be aware of, American nurse theorist. I just loved how she thought and how she planned care. And again, I was fortunate enough to be able to implement our care plans and assessments of patients using her structure to provide nursing care. From there, we then had a celebration of the hospital, which was the Wesley Hospital in Brisbane. It was the 10th anniversary. One of the nurse educators and myself decided we'd love to have a conference and showcase what we were doing within our organisation. We were given some funding, and we brought Dorothea Oram to Australia, which was in those days just something fantastic for nurses to have such a noted nursing professional in Australia. At that conference, I actually presented to the conference attendees patient education, and I was so excited at the end when I had university students coming up to thank me. There was a line of them to thank me and Jill Braid, who was the educator at that time, for actually being able to explain what nursing education was about. They said, we've got exams on this next week and we don't have to study it. Thank you so much. So those sorts of comments and feedback has spurred me to further the course of nursing in Queensland. Yes.
So you brought across Dorothy from the US, and now we're planning right now to go to the US next year. And from my memory, it's Chicago. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, that's in planning stages at the moment, if our borders are open.
Well, if our borders are open and you're in the field of nursing, then no matter where you are in the US, we'd love to hear from you, because that's where we're planning on heading next year. So tell me now, we've heard about some of those great strengths and successes and achievements that you've experienced in your career. What about the challenges?
Challenges have been a reasonable number. First of all, getting people to accept change, and I was fortunate to do mental health nursing as well, and we did significant numbers of psychology subjects in that. So I was able to utilise that knowledge base to change the workplace, to develop collegiality within the workplace, to empower each and every nurse. So they felt that they had something to contribute. So that fortunately was able to provide the backbone of developing a cohesive team where our team members respected each other for their knowledge base and their skills, because we're all different and we all bring different sets of skills to make a composite team.
So if we dial forward now to where we are today, you are the president of the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland. And as association, you are a union, and you're not a new union now. You've got a good size membership, but there's been some struggle, hasn't there, breaking into the fold of the old traditional long-standing nurses union in Queensland. Tell me a little bit about that history.
Yes, well, historically, I actually worked with some of the original members who set up the QNMU. I'm not a traditional or a career unionist, but I felt we did need change at that time to actually support the clinicians in the workplace. Hence, I provided my services voluntarily there, and we have seen significant change over years. And then over time, many of our colleagues were saying that they didn't feel supported within the workplace by their union. I thought, oh, that's just one person's opinion. Then it became to become a thread and then a fabric of conversation that people weren't feeling supported. I then discovered that there was a new association called the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland. I investigated. I thought, this sounds great. It's progressive. It's new. I'd actually been through change from the RANF into the QNU. And I thought, well, after all of this time, perhaps it's time to change and look at this model. And very surprised with it. I did a lot of investigating for a couple of years and then decided to join the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland. And it is, I found it to be dynamic, brilliant team to work with, people that are looking to support nurses on the ground and protect them within the workplace, to offer support, to drive change in models of care within the healthcare industry.
So I've been on the road with you for a week now, and we've done thousands of kilometres as we've been travelling around, excuse me, and meeting nurses from all different sectors. So we've got aged care nurses, Royal Flying Doctor nurses, midwives, etc. So there's a large range. And since we're out here in the southwest, obviously it's a different style of service that has to be offered in these remote and often isolated areas. So what are some of the things that you're hearing on this southwest tour that are topics that need to be researched and drilled down, looked at much more?
Well, Tracy, as you know, we've been getting up at 3:30 in the morning to travel hundreds and hundreds of kilometres. Now, we're only doing that this week, basically, to attend our workplaces. Lots of these nurses are actually travelling hundreds of kilometres each day to and from work. With shift work, they are feeling quite fatigued. They're doing morning, afternoon shifts and night duties all in a fortnight, sometimes in a week, and they are just feeling exhausted. We quite understand, having done shift work myself, but I didn't have the added problem of travelling hundreds of kilometres, because outback Queensland, outback Australia, to get to work. That's what a lot of people have to do day in and day out. So that's been a big issue for a lot of my colleagues that work in the outback. So we are planning to work on this issue, sleep health for the nurses in our next DB.
So for those listeners across the world, nursing obviously varies no matter where you are, but fatigue is one of the big issues that are faced by nurses everywhere in the world, especially when they've got shift work, and how they can improve their time to be working more effectively and productively and safely for both the patient and the nurse themselves. What are some of your tips and tricks that the strategies that you'd be sharing with those nurses?
Well, I would be looking at the rostering practices. We all know we all have a circadian rhythm, and nurses, whilst they are super, they do need their sleep. So I would be thinking that we look at people going back in the previously people would do night duty. And I think that because you do night duty, there needs to be some reward to that. Also, other people just doing shift work, morning and afternoon shift, just to get some balance in their lifestyle. Because we do talk about work-life balance in the organisations that I work with, and I think we really have to have that implemented.
Work-life balance is something that we can't neglect, is it? And I know in this tour, the Southwest Tour, have been doing with both NPAQ, which is your association, and the Teachers Professional Association as well. We're hearing this all the time. We're hearing this as a worldwide topic, no matter what workforce you're in. But for nurses who are frontline workers, this is huge. And I'm amazed at hearing stories of the hours they're doing. So I'm hearing that they're doing incredible number of hours, which has to be taking its toll.
Yes, and we've heard from nursing colleagues that because there is a shortage of nurses, I should say, in the outback, they can't maintain the ratios that in the state of Queensland Health, we have a 1-to-4 nurse-patient ratio. They can't roster to maintain that, or actually at all. So we are just letting people know that there are jobs, and brilliant jobs, out in the outback. And a lot of our nurses have been asking us, do you know of any nurses that want to work in the outback? So a great opportunity for those people who want to come to the outback, and they're great teams that you'll be working with.
Yeah. So you may or may not know, if you're listening to us, that we have an organisation called the Royal Flying Doctor Service, or the RFDS. And actually, I was speaking to a person in the US the other day, and they said they loved the movies on the Flying Doctor. And the importance of the Flying Doctor service is that it literally serves people over this geographically enormous area. And geographically, it's almost half this bottom half of the state. And they're flying, they're in the sky every single day, and they're working in the plane with very little space, but they're delivering really, really high quality care to people across the outback, whether they're tourists who have had accidents, or whether they're people on stations. All sorts of issues are happening. So across that area of nursing, can you just tell our listeners some of the day-to-day things that they would be doing besides the high-end accident case?
The RFD nurses do a broad range in their practice, from primary health to intensive care delivery. I work in a metropolitan hospital, and we liaise with the RFDS on a daily basis quite regularly to bring emergencies through from the outback to the cities for intensive care. in transit. These nurses are caring for these patients. They're intubated patients, quite ill, in a bumpy plane to get patients to the city for emergency care. They just do a brilliant job, and the outcomes for patients living in rural Australia are just fantastic. Thank you, RFDS nurses.
Yes, so if you are in the nursing industry and you're looking for a job to satisfy your desire to travel, to fly, to do air medicine along with the doctors, RFDS doctors, and to work out back, then please let us know. Leave a message at bbs.com and you will find us, and we'll be able to share some more information around that. But let's get back to NPAQ, the association you work for. Margaret, tell us why your association is so great for its members.
NPAQ is great for our members. It's an organisation, nurses for nurses. We are looking at the frontline staff and clinicians and encouraging change for their workplace. We have a brilliant team put together, diverse professions. We've got lawyers, nurses, marketing, and people at industrial advocates as well. And they're on the end of the phone line to take the call of our nurses.
So NPAQ came in, as we mentioned before, long after the old established nurses union. So what was some of the challenges that you experienced as the new kid on the block?
New kid on the block. I, as a representative of NPAQ, spoke about nursing education and how we saw into the 21st century we need to pair nursing education with skills and skill enhancement. And unfortunately, the QNNU did not feel that was pertinent, and how dare I speak out, which basically contravenes our freedom of association, our freedom of choice, and freedom of speech, which is our democratic right. I could then see why other nurses in the profession were feeling that they were being challenged by this sort of behaviour. Fortunately, I've got a little bit of age on me, so I could actually deal with this, and I had a brilliant support system with NPAQ, and felt that I was correct in my thinking. They did as well, and we have now going from strength to strength and providing this service to each and every one of our members.
So I'm hearing correctly that there's been resistance from the other union against the NPAQ coming in onto their turf, which one would think that they'd be more than happy. There's so many nurses in Queensland that there's plenty of opportunity to help and support, which should be a very collaborative, co-creative opportunity, but it hasn't been. And what I'm picking up, obviously, as we travel around, is that there's a little bit of fear going on, that people might be being coerced, perhaps, to not listen to you. Would that be correct, or have I missed that?
Yes, that does happen on occasions. However, because people are aware that we can speak face to face, the conversation train is now that they're quite okay. I guess it's like a little bit like sibling rivalry. When the young baby arrives, that somebody gets jealous, and I guess we're dealing with that in on a bigger scale.
So you're the little sister. But yeah. But isn't it great that the hospitals welcome you in through their doors and allow you to, or not even allow, enable you to speak to the nurses and listen to them and share some of the support that you're able to give them?
Yes, and I commend the nursing profession and nurses individually for not being involved in political or nonsense and getting down to basic communication, because that's what we are. And everyone has individual differences. Everyone has individual different likes and dislikes. And whether you pick one union or the other, it doesn't concern us. We are here to provide our services to those members that have chosen to join us. And we've got a lot of people joining us as our numbers are swelling. Yes.
So when you hear the word union, we always think of a political action and response in behind that. So unions traditionally in Australia are definitely associated with politics in that way, that they're trying to push their beliefs and whatnot, especially with industrial relations. So tell me what's different about this union or NPAQ in terms of that political field.
Well, Tracy, I think it really boils down to our actual name, the Nurses Professional Association of Queensland. We are a professional organisation. We and espouse to be professional in our management of nursing.
So tell me, I've been reading in the media lately, there's a hot topic, and no doubt it's a hot topic worldwide, but it's assisted dying. Can you please tell me a little bit about the background with this topic and what's happening in that field?
In Queensland, voluntary assisted dying is being introduced into Parliament. The Nurses Professional Association believe that the population has the right to have a choice. Palliative care services in Queensland specifically are quite underfunded and not resourced sufficiently for individuals living in outback Queensland or out of the city to have access. And we believe as nurses do no harm, and that would mean that each an individual Queenslander is entitled to being afforded access to palliative care services. It's their right to choose.
Okay, so there's a real difference, isn't there, between the conversations around palliative care and voluntary assisted dying? And I'm hearing this conversation everywhere I go. Can you explain to our listeners then what it is that's going on there?
Okay. Palliative care is the care of a patient from diagnosis of an illness to end of life. Harvard studies actually indicate that if people receive palliative care, there's less pain, less hospitalisation, and also they have at least 6 months of quality of life longer. So we think that's a lot at the end of life that people are afforded. And these services delivered by palliative care nurses and doctors who can manage their symptoms. We hear, unfortunately, that people are dying in pain. Well, that should never happen. As nurses, we are advocates for pain management and to ensure that the individual is comfortable to the end of their days.
So with this passing of the bill or act, is it?
The bill is presented. I think it's still in the stages being debated in Parliament, is my understanding.
So with the passing the bill comes a big chunk of money, I'm assuming, that's going to go somewhere. Within the state, at the state level, what are your concerns happening there with that funding?
Our concerns are that money is going to bureaucracy. We are advocating as the Nurses Professional Association that this money actually goes to the front line to provide the care. We see too often that the money is taken up with bureaucracy and the crumbs get fed to the consumer. We, as nurses, advocates for our patients, and we are demanding that money now actually flows to the bottom line. It's the 21st century. We've got computerization, telehealth, everything that could actually cut out a lot of this administration. And the nurses are professional. Doctors have the knowledge base. We know how to plan care. We know the costings. And what we are saying is that money should directly flow to the bottom line.
And that's where it should be, shouldn't it? It should be with the nurses and the patients at that level. If they're looking at something like a change, as in the voluntary assisted dying bill, then they need to direct that money to that chalk face, so to speak.
Yes.
And do something there. Yeah. So what are you suggesting?
Well, people have the right to choose. We are saying that based on our research, looking at European studies, somewhere between 0.37% and 0.94% of people actually take up voluntary assisted dying. So that's just under 1% of the population. It's also been stated that people that actually assign consent to proceed with voluntary assisted dying, in the end, only 50% of those take up that option. So they are then left with the care that we're hearing that they've got pain, excess pain, traumatised families, when that can be resolved by the money flowing into palliative care to resource the needs of the patient.
So it's a win-win for everyone, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So palliative care provides that excellent support to those patients' end of life, as well as those patients who elect to take the voluntary assisted dying road. Then you've got the best of both worlds, both for the patient first and foremost, for the nurses and for the families. So it's a three-way. It's a three-way street, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Because a lot of these patients can be nursed at home and services brought in. I've had experience twice in my life with my father-in-law when that occurred. My father-in-law was with us till 10 minutes to 12. He sat up and in bed and basically said goodbye to us, lay down, and then he was passed away at midnight. My mother was cared for. She lived in a rural area, and fortunately, I have three sisters who are nurses who provided care for her. She did not want to go to a hospital, and it provided an amazing experience for all of us because Mum had what she desired, and we were able to work through the grieving process much quicker because we knew that she was afforded excellent nursing palliative care.
So we know across the world we have increasing aged populations. So this is a topic that has to be centre and foremost now, whether we like it or not. And it's certainly an area that needs help and support in a good, positive way. So what's the NPAQ's role in that? What are you doing right now? What is NPAQ doing in terms of this bill?
NPAQ is promoting for the population of Queensland that they need a choice. It is not my personal decision which way myself or an organisation determines. It's our members, and our members are telling us that they feel concerned having to be involved in voluntary assisted dying. Currently, there is an issue within the with the bill, because we have a Commonwealth Criminal Code which actually precludes anybody assisting in suicide. That bill has not been repealed, so we're actually feeling that we're walking a significant tightrope. Registrations are on the line.
Okay, so being the devil's advocate now, let's have a look at that conversation. So put the elephant in the room well and truly. What about those people who do welcome the opportunity for the choice of a voluntary assisted dying? That's obviously going to cause some issues for people, but once again, it's still a choice for the patient. Can you tell me what you're thinking there?
Well, the patient has that right to make that choice, just as the nurse has the right to make the choice in the delivery of their care. We are professionals and we have that right. Currently, our members say we promote do no harm, which is our mantra, and this actually presents to us an ethical dilemma.
So for those nurses who would be able and willing to participate in that, so you saying that there should be that option once again for a nurse to elect yes or no, I'm able to participate in A, B and C?
Yes, yes. A nurse is an individual. They have their own moral code of conduct, and they have the right to make that decision.
Okay, so you're not actually saying no to voluntary assisted. You're just saying
we're saying that there needs to be a choice, and that choice needs to be funded. Currently, it's being said that basically in Queensland that voluntary assisted dying is palliative care on the cheap. Yes.
Yes, it's a hot topic, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes.
It's an interesting topic, and it's one that we have to have, isn't it? And it's great that you're able to come here today to share that conversation, because it's probably one that not a lot of people want to even talk about, let alone consider. And so it's an interesting one, that's for sure. So if you've lost a family member or a close friend, you will definitely have an opinion around this. So what happens next then in this area, in this topic? What happens next? What's going to happen now?
We've put to Parliament, to members of Parliament, what NPAQ members have said, and we are expecting them as voters for in the Queensland electorates that they can have a choice.
So you've done a survey of some sort, have you?
Yes, we have done a survey, yes.
That's great. And what was the results of that?
Basically, as nurses, then there's a big percentage that say they don't want to be involved.
And what sort of percentage is a big percentage?
Well, over 90%, yes. But there are some of those that are undecided.
So with the undecided, what are you professing? Obviously, there's got to be some sort of procedure and process. So what are you suggesting for those that do elect to be part of the process? What sort of process are you supporting there? What would you like to see?
Well, I think there has to be significant amounts of consultation. So it is actually worked out, cut and dried, so people know where they actually stand. Nurses in the workplace have enough pressure without having to be stressed by an ethical dilemma day in and day out.
So taking that decision making away from them and giving that to the doctor, is that what you're saying?
No, an individual nurse has the right to decide what practices she is or he is involved in. Yeah.
But for those people who do elect to be a part of the process of voluntary assisted dying, for those people, what is the best process for them? Because no matter what, at some stage level, someone has to give that authority, and I would expect that's not a nurse. That would be a doctor or someone who has to sign off on the certificate.
Initially, it is actually the patient's decision.
Yes.
So there would need to be a panel that actually had to determine. So it's not just one person.
So we see that overseas, model, don't we? Yeah. And you think that's a good model?
That's quite
What's happening overseas?
That's quite a reasonable model for those people. But as we said before, that 50% of those people don't, in the end. Basically, if you look at Kubler-Ross's stages of dying, people are angry to start with, and sometimes we have seen, like in Outback Australia, there is the issues around suicide because there isn't the services there to actually support people to make an informed decision at that in the initial stages. Then there's the anger and depression, etc. So that all of those symptoms have to be have intervention and considered and work the individual through that process. Yes.
Okay, so we've got lots of information there on the voluntary assisted dying. Can you tell us what other topics are up front and spiky, perhaps, at the moment? Yes, any juicy, spiky type topics that we can quickly explore before we run out of time?
I believe, by and large, nurses are reasonably happy within their workplace. They feel that there has to be change in like shift work. There has to be change in models of care. We're looking at emergency departments which are understaffed at the present time, and the money has to go to the front line because for years and years and years they have been stretched and stretched and stretched, and that elastic band has got no
more
pliability left.
It's ready to snap, isn't it?
Yes, and we see that across the nation. With I think in Western Australia we have seen that nurses are and doctors are starting to protest.
So, why join Npaq?
Well, Npaq is here to change the system, and we are going to look at lobbying our respective representatives in politics, the government, to ensure that nurses do get a fair share of this budget, so it can be implementing change on the bottom line.
Okay, so Npaq is run by nurses, for nurses, not by union officials. That's a really important point, isn't it?
That's correct.
There's zero party politics. So Npaq does not allow any of that shenanigans with the political affiliation. And that means that there's lower fees because money isn't given to other political affiliates. So support when you need it, which is immediate, isn't it? When they pick up the phone, someone's there on the line ready to give help straight away. The initial response is within one business day, and workplace issues are consultatively resolved. Nursing interests first, focus on the patient care, not the paperwork. I love that. I love that point. Focus on the nurse and their patient care, not on the paperwork. So anyone can join: nurses, enrolled nurses, nurse practitioners, nurse managers, and midwives can be members, AIN, allied health professionals, paramedics, ward persons, and support staff. So there's a lot of people there that can join and become a member of NPAQ.
Yes, that's correct, Tracy. Yes.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. So in finishing off there, what legal support is available for a member registered with NPAQ?
NPAQ has a brilliant team of legal expertise, and our members have immediate access to those. Any issues that need to be on-forwarded are stepped up to a legal firm, I beg your pardon, and dealt with. Yes.
Okay then, so if someone wants to become a member of NPAQ, how do they join?
We have got our websites up, NPAQ. You can see that on electronically. You can also approach people in your workplace. We have a number of branch secretaries and delegates throughout Queensland hospitals, and they will give you information. So we do have a phone number.
Okay, so if you want to become a member of NPAQ in Queensland, then you will need to find the link, which is www.npaq.com.au. So that's the Nurses Professional Association Queensland, NPAQ, or there's a phone number, 1300 code PH. That's the hotline at npaq.com.au. So if you're interested in becoming a member, and there's certainly lots and lots of value added benefits there with NPAQ, and the paradigm shift is real, it's happening, and I'm seeing and hearing fabulous stories and comments from nurses and paramedics, etc., as we travel around. So that's a point to take into consideration. So if you are in Queensland, Australia, NPAQ is definitely a site that you want to visit, www.npaq.com.au. For those people who are overseas, guess what? I think they're going to Chicago next year. So there you go. If you want to meet the heads and the executive and the leaders of NPAQ, then stay in touch with us and keep your eye out on that website. And when those borders open and the planes are flying, I'm pretty sure they're going to Chicago first stop. That'd be right?
I believe so,
Packing your
Tracy.
bags?
Yes, yes.
All right. So it's come to the point where, as I said to you, we are in the outback of Australia, in the southwest of Queensland, and we are thousands of kilometres away from the city and right out here. And we actually have a bird flying around above us, and we're in a library. It's a very, very small town, but the nursing is really, really, really high quality. So it's lovely to see all the nurses, and all the very best to all nurses out there across the world. You do a wonderful job, and we love what you do. For us, it's time to say goodbye, and thank you, Margaret, for coming on board right out here in the outback in Cunnamulla in the southwest Queensland, and I hope to speak to you again. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to another 60 minutes of inspiring talking points on Tracy Tully Talks, brought to you by bbsradio.com. Tune in every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Australian time, AEST, and 5 p.m. PT time in America. Leave me a message on my website at www.bbsradio.com/Tracy Tully Talks. If you're interested in lifting the profile, presence and profit of your business, sponsorship opportunities are available. Until next Thursday, it's goodbye from me.